What is going on? No horsing around, family. Zach Boyd back at it again. Wednesday live stream as we do every single Wednesday all season long. Today hopping on here, one of my good friends, Adam Reuter, man. Adam, how you been?
Been doing good, man. How about you, Zach?
Hey, not too bad. Just excited to kind of react a little bit to week one as we phase into week two against the Texans, I guess, on Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern time here in Indy. Just some initial thoughts, week one. Obviously, the person everybody had all the focus on, Anthony Richardson. Just your initial thoughts. Haven't had a chance to have a conversation, so I'm just curious how you felt about his performance.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of good to build off of for sure. Definitely some things to clean up, but I think everyone pretty much knew that going in. Really encouraged, I would say, to put it in short. So to kind of same for the overall team. So lots of goods, lots of good things, a little bit of things to clean up for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, I think I walked away from the game, Adam, a little bit, I would say, encouraged, not discouraged by his performance. I probably thought he would have been a little bit more inconsistent. I thought the completion percentage might have been a little bit lower, if I'm being honest with you. I didn't have real high expectations. His first game, obviously, Jacksonville's supposed to win the division, coming off a really good playoff run last year. He goes out, he plays. He actually played really well, man. I mean, he did. I thought, he had a couple missed opportunities there. But, hey, overall, I mean, the legs look good. I mean, the accuracy was there. Pretty good stuff for a very first game for a guy who only has 9 starts in college football, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and as well as that, just your initial thoughts on the defense, because I'll be honest with you, I'll be 100% transparent. Anybody listening to this, I don't think I expected defense to play very good at all. Coming into that game, I was really worried about that cornerback group. Just your thoughts on just the defense and how they played, against the Jags.
Yeah, I would say they exceeded my expectations. I think the pass rush actually kind of gained a little bit of steam as the game went on, which kind of surprised me. Usually it's the other way around where they kind of start losing a little bit of steam going on at the end. But I felt like, that kind of, got better as the game went on. Kwity Paye was getting to the passer. DeForest Buckner was being the usual beast that he is. And so that was really encouraging to see. I think the defensive backfield definitely had its struggles. I mean, that's a really talented wideout group going against and a good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who's probably only going to get better. But I think that, that's kind of what you knew with having a young defensive backfield like that. They were going to be tested, and they definitely were. But overall, I think the defense did exceed expectations. In the end, whenever it mattered the most, and they needed to, the offense really couldn't come through on some conversions and then turn the ball over like that in the fourth quarter. They weren't able to slow them down in the end ultimately. But I think for the most part, they scored 31 points, but still, you can't expect. You got to be able to put up points and move the ball when you absolutely have to. And like I said, I think that they did better than I expected them to as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you alluded the offense kind of stalled out there at the end. They had that lead midway through the fourth quarter. You got to think one more real good drive, go down and score a touchdown, you probably win that football game. I mean, it's a completely different situation. That being said, the running game, Adam, I don't think anybody can deny that was putrid, terrible, horrific, whatever other adjective that you want to use with that running back group. Anthony Richardson shouldn't be your best running option all year long, but probably is going to be your best running option all year long. Now, we hope Zach Moss comes in there and gives us, a little bit injection of life this week. That being said, running backs, man, just how concerned are you with the running back group in general moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern, especially when you see Evan Hull go down as well and be injured. I think he was a rookie that was definitely going to get a lot of snaps and be able to catch the ball out of the backfield quite a bit too. So it really sucks I don't know the severity of his injury, if there's been any update on that, but it sounds like he is going to miss some time and not at a convenient time at all right now, especially with the JT Pup situation. It is concerning. I think that Deion Jackson's a hard runner, and I think that Jake Funk did step in. He ran hard too, but I think there is obviously a limit to their talent level and what they can do. I do think that there's a few different aspects to it. I think the offensive line's still playing kind of poor in the run game. Unfortunately, we saw kind of some of that. We saw a lot of that last year, bad O-line play, and unfortunately, I think we saw quite a bit of that in Week 1. So there's no denying that they do miss Jonathan Taylor. He is going to, obviously he's going to give a boost to the running game if and when he comes back. But right now, it's definitely a concern. You're looking pretty thin on there, and you need Zach Moss to come back in a real bad way.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And, Tyrell brings up a really good point. I don't think that it's on the running backs. The line give us no push. I think it's both, Tyrell. I think the running back talent, you're a little bit void of talent there. The offensive line, to be fair, they're not the reason that Deion Jackson fumbled the ball twice, but you are 100% right. That offensive line did not get the push that's been expected. And I guess 2 years, Adam, we've been kind of battling this situation where we've thought we've had really what should be one of our strong suits on this football team is an offensive line. Maybe it's time to start thinking, just because they were good at one point doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be good as a group moving forward. How concerned are you with this offensive line? You think it's just a matter of just Week 1 getting to learn, this new system? Or do you think, man, I've got some real red flags in my head thinking moving forward that this might translate into an issue down the road like it did last year?
Yeah, I mean, you could give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit on the new scheme and everything, but I mean, for the most part, there hasn't been any big pieces that have been missing up to this point. They've all been able to play together for the most part through training camp, haven't had any really big injuries. Maybe Ryan Kelly missed some time with that foot injury, but, we didn't hear his name too much, or see him too much on Sunday, which was a good thing. I think him and Ryman, the left tackle, played really well. The one snap I did see, I think it was a 4th down call or a 3rd down, where Ryman did give up off the edge. He was being held, and it was a missed call from the D lineman was holding him from kicking out and picking up that stunt pass rush. So I've been really impressed with him. Ryan Kelly. On the other hand, it looks like we got more injuries popping up with Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith, which is not what you want to hear right now. With the knee and the ankle with Braden Smith. So it definitely is a concern, man. It helps to have a mobile quarterback now that's going to be able to bail out of the pocket a lot quicker, but that still is not going to help the running game. And that's still going to put a ton of pressure on Anthony Richardson to make, very, very accurate and decisive throws, which they can't really expect that out of him right away at this point in his career.
Yeah, man. I mean, it should be interesting. We'll let Steven pop in here. My man Steven, he's late to the party, but he still made a chance to get on here. Hey, Steven, just to kind of recap, we just started off kind of just refreshing on last week's game against the Jags, and talking a little bit of O-line, running back group, Anthony Richardson, just overall performance in his first game. I guess right now we're on the O-line. I'm curious your thoughts. Pretty good timing for you. Are you concerned with this offensive line at all moving forward? I know it's Week 1. It's kind of, overreaction Monday, Tuesday, and I guess for this purpose, overreaction Wednesday here as we do the live stream. But that being said, are you nervous about this line moving forward? Are you more of in the wait and see approach?
So I'm nervous about the depth. That's the thing that scares me the most, right? Is the odds are not like great that we'll produce what we did several years ago where everyone started every game, that you didn't have an issue. The depth is what concerns me the most. I'm also a little concerned. I'd say I'm concerned about that because you just look today, right? Who was it? Braden Smith and Quentin Nelson. Was it Quentin Nelson?
Yep.
I think it was Quentin Nelson. Neither one practiced today. That's not – I mean, they're going to play. I think they're little, the old adage, right? Like once the season starts, you're not 100%. But that's concerning. and you don't have any depth really behind them. I think we saw on Sunday what a mobile quarterback does to the line. There's probably half a dozen more plays that would have been sacks in years past that Richardson was able to get out of. But overall, it's a concern to me. I think the reason it's a big concern too, and Zach, you say this a lot, is it's just weird because it's, like you said in the last episode that you did with Ballard, is it goes against everything he's always preached about competition and depth and the trenches to be kind of this thin in an area that he really emphasizes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there is a concern. I don't know how concerned I am with the offensive line, but there is a concern. Corey mentions that Will Fries has continued to be a liability at the right guard, graded in the 50s with PFF. And, Will Fries, to me, I guess what doesn't sit well with me, Steven and Adam, is the fact that they just gave the guy the job. 2 years in a row, we've basically just handed a job to a certain guy at a certain position group. And, like I said, as you mentioned earlier, we did the kind of the Chris Ballard rant podcast yesterday that's went over really, really well. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, do that after you listen to this. But, his words, not mine. I'm not saying this. This is Chris Ballard saying we build in the trenches and we're always going to create and build competition. Well, there's no competition when you give a guy a job, from the onset in the offseason. And it's just been this bullishness that he's had over the last several years to just not really have a willingness to maybe change. And I think that is frustrating to me. I think it's frustrating to Colts fans. And obviously we're in people don't want to hear it, but more of a rebuild mode right now. But that being said, the number one thing that you have to do is preserve and protect your franchise quarterback, right? Like if anything else, and you don't want to pay for a wide receiver, you don't want to pay for a cornerback, you don't want to pay for a pass rusher. You got to protect your future. Otherwise, we've already seen it a little bit, him dealing with a couple, knee bruises, a couple bad falls on that turf. Definitely something to look forward to. Want to get to some of these comments as you guys are starting to come through. Thank you so much. Antonio May says, how likely would the Colts sign another wide receiver or maybe chase Lyle Collins? Lyle Collins, I do believe, played a little bit of guard in Dallas in his rookie year. I'd be intrigued, but he is also on PUP right now, I do believe. So couldn't play for the next few weeks, but I'd be intrigued by Lyle. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I wouldn't mind taking a flyer. You guys, how you feel about maybe going out and chasing a wide receiver or a Lyle Collins if you want to bring in and upgrade a little bit there? I'll circle back to you, Adam, first.
Yeah, I would certainly be on board with that. Unfortunately, kind of what you were talking about before, it just seems like Chris Ballard is just very, very bullish and stubborn on adding that type of talent for whatever reason. You talked about bringing in other competition. I don't know what other competition was brought in for the right guard spot besides the undrafted guy out of Alabama who ultimately didn't end up making the team, if I remember correctly. So I would be all for that. Lyle Collins, I think that probably is his best position, working inside and not having to move out in as much space. I think he'd be, fit pretty well in between Braden Smith and Ryan Kelly. But ultimately, I think the realistic thing is, Chris Ballard's probably going to sit tight and not pull the trigger on that. That's just kind of the reality of the situation, unfortunately. So, but I'd be all for it personally.
Yeah, I mean, Steven, Lyle Collins, thoughts? Take a flyer on him, maybe?
I would, but I'm in agreement with Adam. I don't think he does. I mean, we're talking about a guy, we're talking right now, the absolute dire need of a running back, and we've done nothing that we thought we would do, right? Yeah. He's not, I don't see it. Lyle Collins, when he came out, highly thought of. I think he went in the supplemental draft, I think, is what he did. But he was a first-round talent. Big deal when he landed in Dallas. Huge deal when he landed with the Bengals. I mean, guy coming in saying, like, no one's going to mess with Burrow anymore. I mean, and they continue to mess with him. So, obviously, he didn't do great there, right? But, overall, I would love to see it. But, I'm going to agree with Adam, man. I don't think when someone shows you who they are, they tell you who they are, right? Like he has shown that he's not about that. He's not going to go out and do this. He's going to stick to what he has. And if he goes down, he's going to go down doing it 100% his way.
So what you're saying is he's not listening to this live stream right now, right?
No, how cool would that be if he popped up in the comments all of a sudden?
Does not care about what any of us fans have to say, which, to be fair, as a general manager, you can't listen to what every fan says, knee-jerk reactions and all of that good stuff. Hannah says just hopping on, kind of expecting to win this weekend against the Texans. Yeah, that'd be you want to talk about the air kind of coming out of the sails, man. If we don't beat the Texans, that's going to be that's not a good indicator. I'll just say that for future things to come. Why hasn't Ballard signed more receivers? Preaching to the choir, Eddie, my man. Sarah says Ballard needs to get his act together. Well, if you listen to this podcast, don't expect it to happen. I think Chris Ballard is going to do it, hit Chris Ballard's way, win, lose, or draw, just like you had said. What's Eddie say here? Or say should fire Ballard and promote Ed Dodds. Anybody but Ballard maybe at this point, but we'll just see. We're not going to make it all about Ballard. Ballard's philosophy has got the number one protected QB. Sure, the line. Not sure what happened with his philosophy. I'm not sure he even knows what happened with his philosophy. Right tackle for Antonio May. Corey says I would like to see Braden Smith kicked inside a right guard and let Blake Freeland play right tackle. Don't think it'll happen, Corey. That being said, he was drafted to be a guard, right? Like that was the whole intentions when they drafted him from the very beginning. And we've seen Braden Smith struggle early on in seasons and then kind of have a nice bounce back. I don't know what it is about week one for him. Maybe he just doesn't play a lot in the preseason, some of that stuff, but it's weird, man. I can specifically remember last year, week one, him getting beat badly in that first week. And then it just started to settle down as the season went on. Very weird. Don't have any clue, rhyme or reason. He feels bad for the Jet.
I want to point him out. I believe JK5671, he is a Jets fan because he makes a comment about, I am so sorry, my man. I feel so bad for you.
Yeah.
When it comes, I couldn't imagine. Me and Zach talked about this, not to go off on with the Jets, but since there's a Jet fan here, I'm going to say that I could not imagine the emotions because even just as an NFL fan, I feel robbed. I feel robbed to see what happens.
75 seconds. That's what you got with Aaron Rodgers.
70. Oh.
And I'm not laughing. I'm just. You want to talk about?
You're laughing because it's like, man.
Jeez, man, that's tough for.
I didn't even see him. I didn't tune in time. By the time I tuned into the game, he was already gone.
I don't know, Adam. Do you have a chance to watch that? Just a little bit of a reaction to him falling down. I thought it was more of just like a leg cramp or a little bit of a leg strain. But then when he went down, I thought, oh, this is going to be worse probably.
Yeah, even when they showed the replay a few times, I was still looking. I was like, I didn't see anything that happened, And then sure enough, they ended up showing that screenshot where his, foot was planted on the ground like that. Yeah, the NFL's a cruel place sometimes, and probably not a better, fitting, I guess, irony for that to happen to the Jets. That's I definitely feel for all the Jets fans out there, and kind of like what Steven said, as an NFL fan, I was just kind of excited to see what the hype was about and see what that whole team could do with that level of a quarterback end up playing. So hopefully he can give it another shot next year and see what they can do. But yeah, unfortunate.
I'd say Colts Nation, be glad your quarterback is Anthony Richardson and not Zach Wilson. Didn't look good, but you never know, man. He got thrust into a weird situation. Maybe he bounces back. Aaron Rodgers seems to have been a good thing for him. They're going to roll with him, at least initially. They do play the Dallas Cowboys this weekend, which will not be an easy test if you guys had a chance to watch that game either. Let's get through some of these. Gardaki's Ballard draft was praised. Top-tier free agents don't seem the closest destination. Not all Ballard's fault. I will agree, not all his fault, but you got to at least try, right? I mean, you got to at least go out there and take a couple swings at the fence. Colts need to stop the BS and just sign JT. That's a thought. We got another one saying pay JT. Uh, you know, not the worst idea probably that anybody ever came up with, I mean, based off of that first performance, but it doesn't seem like that's even a possibility for the Indianapolis Colts. So we're going to have to deal with what we're going to have to deal with. We'll find out in 3 weeks. Christian says, I still don't see why Dalton Reisner hasn't been given any chances yet. Who knows, man? Maybe he's asking for a lot of money. He's a veteran guy. He's probably the most highly coveted name you hear thrown out there. Who knows, man? I mean, maybe he doesn't want to play here. I mean, I know he's liked a few tweets from the fans out there. I'm not a Jet. I'm not a Jets. My dad is. Well, sorry for your dad as well, because that was a rough one for you guys. Mikey, let's just try to get through these. I hope the team does not underestimate the Texans. Question will be definitely coming off starting out 0-2, heading to Baltimore. We don't need that, Mikey. Let's see. Colts have the OC of the head coach, Zach Wilson and Fields, and have a defense as head coaches. Not sure what that means 100%. I'm sure our front office does more with anyone is told. And last question, Joaquin. How many games will Richardson play with this lousy offensive line capable, no capable running back? Not many. Yeah, hey, we talked about that earlier. I mean, I think the biggest concern and I think the biggest thing is you got to protect your investment, Steven, right? Like you got to go out there and make sure that guy has every opportunity to stay upright, stay healthy as the season goes along. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do here. I don't know. It sure seems like the Colts are content with just not being great this year, getting a high draft pick and maybe doing a quick flip. Let's get over to some encouraging things, though. I mean, Zaire Franklin, 18 tackles, pass defended, defense. We'll kick it over to Adam to start with. Just I know we talked a little bit initially, but just in particular, Zaire Franklin, any other player that stood out to you that you really liked the way they played, specifically naming people out on Sunday on the defensive side anyways?
Yeah, I had already mentioned him before, but I got to give him a shout out again. DeForest Buckner just looks like as good as ever right now, and that's what they really need. I was also encouraged to see Kwity Paye, rushing the passer, moving guys out of the way and getting to the quarterback. That was good to see as well. A couple things on, I guess, for the linebackers. Obviously, Zaire Franklin was a stud. Something that I was interested to see was on third downs. Is after the first third down where they scored the touchdown in the red zone, Leonard was out on third downs and they were bringing in EJ Speed on the passing downs. And I wasn't sure, and I want your guys' opinion too, because I really don't know if maybe he was on more of a pitch count coming back or if they're starting to look at him as more of a liability on third downs, which is kind of unfortunate considering you're paying him $18.5 million a year. So I know that I don't think that was all his fault on that touchdown. I think you remember when Calvin Ridley just caught that ball in the end zone, Leonard kind of ran by and kind of just threw his hands in the air. I think that Zaire had one side of the field and Leonard had the other one, and Franklin bailed out and he just went after Lawrence and he didn't get there in time, obviously. So I don't know about that play, and I don't know if the coaches made that decision right there. But we did see a lot of EJ Speed coming in for Leonard in that point. So that's kind of concerning, and another thing was Nick Cross. We heard a lot about him and how much he'd improved. And then I don't think he had a single defensive snap the whole game, and we saw Julian Blackman in there. And I think he really, not to, call him out and put the game on him by any means, but on that Travis Etienne touchdown at the very end, he absolutely got sucked in the middle. He had that outside contain. Dio broke his contain on the edge too and got way too far inside. And the rest was just bad tackling. But Blackman has had some questionable play, and I think that Bradley has some figuring out to do on how to work Nick Cross in, because I think he's a really good player, and if he's not ready, he's not ready. But I think that if we see that type of play from those guys back there, hopefully we can see some of Nick Cross introduced and helping out that defensive backfield a little bit.
Yeah, Adam, to circle back, Shane Steichen did have a press conference a few hours ago and did mention that pitch count that Shaq Leonard was on. Now, that might not even be the case. That might just be coach speak, if we're being 100% honest. PFF had EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin both rated over 90 this week. 92.2, I believe, for EJ Speed. You guys can fact check me on that. And like 90.5 for Zaire Franklin. So when you got two guys playing in the 90s, you're paying a guy $18.5 million a year, but I don't know that you could take those guys out, at that point. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. It's crazy. And, that's me talking out of both sides of my neck. You talked about earlier, not paying someone. Well, you do pay this guy, and then you don't end up, you end up still playing the players that are playing best on the field, no matter what you are paying them. So, it was nice to see that performance. I'm glad you brought that up. Julian Blackmon dropped that interception earlier that everybody thought he's going to have. Then he kind of whiffed on that tackle. I've always been such a big fan of Julian, but I start to wonder, Steven, with Julian Blackmon, as I'll let you kind of take some thoughts here, if his body's going to allow him to play in the NFL week in and week out. Because, as Adam mentioned earlier, some real inconsistencies with this guy. And you think one of the things that's been inconsistent outside of football games is his ability to practice and string multiple practices along.
Yeah, I mean, with Julian, that's a concern, right? Like we've seen it before where it doesn't seem that there's certain players, Paris Campbell comes to mind, right? Whose body just doesn't seem to be built for the NFL. So it's a concern. I'm going to echo with what Adam said too, is that not seeing Nick Cross was interesting for me. We heard so much about like the maturity level, the huge jump that he had made in practice, because Bradley came out basically in training camp and said he didn't play a lot because he didn't practice well. Like he wasn't showing, and they praised him for that. And I mean, I might be wrong, but from what I remember hearing too, is this dude's like the athletic young freak. Like he's like Anthony Richardson almost on the defensive side of the ball because of how young he was last year. So I was disappointed not to see that. Zaire looked amazing. Like I was listening to the radio this morning and they were talking about him and said he seems to now, they said on the broadcast too, like he just doesn't know the defense. That's his defense. Like he understands it inside out. He's in the position inside this defensive scheme to be the playmaker, it seems like. One thing that I'll say too is I was pleasantly surprised with a bounce back kind of performance from last year to this year of Kenny Moore. You didn't hear his name called a lot, which is great. And he seemed, I thought that was something, we mentioned in the instant reaction too, was that the pair up with Calvin Ridley in the second half, like they made a big point on the broadcast of really pointing that out. They were putting him 1-1 with Ridley, and Ridley did not have a great second half. And you could say game plan or not, but the game was not so far out of reach that they were not going to throw the ball to him. So I liked that. And Kwity Paye looked really good. The line looked, the defensive line in general. And I'm really excited to see that against the Texans because they are down. I believe it's their right tackle, right? Titus Brown.
Howard.
Yeah, it's Titus Howard. He's on IR. He's not there. So, I mean, I'm really interested to see and what that's going to go, because that D line, they looked really dominant in that game and got a lot of pressure on a much more mobile quarterback than we're going to see this week.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Guys, as we get kind of halfway through this thing, just want to let you know this live stream is presented by Wager Wires. Guys, they always are the sponsor of the live stream as we go through the season. If you hadn't had a chance, go out there and place your bets, place your parlays. I believe the Colts are -1 as of right now before we got on this podcast. So go in there and throw some money on Wager Wire. Throw a nice little player prop together. Maybe AR goes over that 44.5 yards this week. Maybe he throws over that 189 in the yardage as well. And if you haven't joined this No Horsing Around family, we encourage you to do that. Seeing some new names in here. We love seeing that. Love seeing the comments, the interaction. Keep feeding us along. We're going to do our best we can to keep up with all of that. Now, we've talked about all of this game, all of everything. This is kind of the segue into what we expect against Houston next week. CJ Stroud threw the football a lot last week, over 40 attempts. I believe the most attempts of any of the big name rookies that was out there. Still didn't get the win. played a pretty good Baltimore Ravens football team. Seemed to be a little bit, a lot more check downs in the game for him. He didn't really air it out either, as to be expected with the rookie. But just overall, Adam, just what's your gut feeling on this game going up against the Texans? I know it's a road game. I know it's a division game, but two teams who are really kind of in the same situation, right?
Yeah, pretty similar. My gut feeling is that it'll probably be I'd be taking the under on the total points. Might be one of those 20-17 type of matchups. But you never know. I don't think you'd mentioned that you didn't see Stroud uncork too many deep balls. And now that I think of it, I can't think of that many deep balls that Richardson really did too, which kind of surprised me that he didn't take a couple shots.
Yeah.
But I hope to see a couple of those every now and then, maybe some third down situations where, even if it is a, interception where, hey, it's just a long, just like a punt basically. But another thing, I did see a passing chart from Richardson from last week, and it did kind of concern me. And I think that defensive coaches like Houston are probably going to take notice of this. All of his throws were, I think every single one of his passes were either on the center or the right side of the field.
Yeah.
And the only pass that he had downfield that was to the left was the one that got intercepted.
Yeah.
So I think the one to Pittman was to the left, but it was obviously just a screen pass. That was the one that he took to the house, obviously. So hopefully he can diversify that and work through his progressions well, because defensive coaches are going to pick up on that and they're going to take advantage of that real quick. So hopefully he can even that out a little bit. But I was encouraged with that. Those are just little things that he's gonna learn as he goes along. And also we kind of talked about it before, but I think Trevor Lawrence had actually said this to him after the game. When they asked him in the post game was, what he said to AR after the game, and he told him, dude, you need to protect yourself, because I think he saw him take some shots there at the end where he was just willing himself to try to get into that end zone. And that 4th and 5 where he converted was admirable. And I think it was the next play where he took the really bad shot trying to get into the end zone. But, if you kind of look at it in hindsight, if they would have taken that field goal instead of going on the sneak, we could have maybe been up, 1 score. I felt the momentum too on wanting to go for it there in 4th and inches. I love the aggressiveness, and that's another thing that AR is going to learn with the quarterback sneak is sometimes you got to go over the top. And once I saw that replay, those are just little things he'll learn and clean up on the best things to do. So, but a lot of good things for sure. And I think we'll continue to see him work on those going into Houston.
Drake, thank you for coming on there. Adam, I agree with a lot of what you just said. I mean, when you're dealing with these rookie quarterbacks, there's a lot of one-step throws, right? Like you just want to get that ball out. And it's easier for him to fire that ball over to the right-hand side. But you're right. Game plan is going to 100%. Now they have real NFL game film against them. And this is what he does well. This is what he struggled with. And you better bet that DeMeco Ryans is going to have a very, very good game plan. As you know, he has a great track record with that defense, as he did it with the 49ers. Drake Wally, my man, says AR still needs footwork. Him hitting short intermediate throws are huge. Got to hit them throws to the left too. But overall, showed an offense in his first game and did above expectations. I don't disagree with that at all. And I do expect them, Steven, to maybe have a little bit different flow this week. Zach Moss obviously is not, a necessarily a top tier running back, but it would be an upgrade, right? And I think anything would be an upgrade over, Deion Jackson, 12 carries, 13 yards. That's terrible, huh?
Well, and I think, with Zach Moss, I think it's a definite upgrade. I mean, you're coming off of Deion Jackson, who I think Kevin Bowen said it, historically bad performance for a running back, like historically bad on how he looked, the fumbling issues, the dropped passes, just in general across the board. So of course, I think anything is an upgrade. And, with Zach Moss too, a lot of people kind of checked out at the end of the season. A lot of people probably did in those last 3 games. And, he's not a burner. He's a big, bulky back. He can get, I think he's going to be able to get those 4 or 5 yards. I think people are going to respect him obviously more than Deion when you're running the RPO game with him. I think that's going to come naturally. I think that's going to be an upgrade at that position. I'm interested, as well as everybody, to see kind of the progression from week 1 to week 2 with AR, because I do wonder, and I talked with Zach about this, I do wonder if the short passes and the majority of them being to the right was game plan more. Give him one side of the field to read and
100%.
protect him and not throw the deep ball, which is kind of funny because you've kind of heard it across the board, right? A lot of people were like, man, he can't throw the deep ball is why he didn't throw it. And you're sitting there going, man, coming out, everybody talked about the same thing. His deep ball is one of his best throws. So seeing him hit those intermediate routes was encouraging. But I wonder, I want to see how do they continue to develop him? How do they game plan? But how do they change it up? Right? Steichen has said it's a week-to-week basis on the game plan. It's team-specific, opponent-specific. What are they going to do? And kind of, someone I'm keeping an eye on this week. I still think Joshua Downs is going to get a lot of run. I think he's really comfortable with him. I want to see more from Alec Pierce. I do want to see some deep shots. That's his game.
Yeah.
And, we saw it. Zach always pointed out, we saw it in training camp. We saw it in the practice clips. We did not see it in the preseason. He had a big problem with dropping the ball, right?
Yeah.
So I want to see that. I think part of me and I know we'll do our predictions later, but part of me feels like I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any stretch, because I don't think the Colts do blowouts anymore. They keep it close. They make us all sweat to the very end. But part of me goes, I don't think that there's as much talent on Houston as there is on the Colts. I think Houston's one of not kind of, if not, they're not Arizona, but they're not great. They're in a complete rebuild with it. And I've said, and this may be just me, and Zach knows this, I've said, I think as much as I like Stroud coming out, I think he has the highest bust potentially with who he's on, who he has as a coach, and kind of the tendencies of hitting him in the mouth and he's not doing very well, and you're going to get hit in the mouth. So there are several things I'm watching during this week. And the main one, of course, being, what does week 1 to week 2 look like for Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, and you mentioned D'Amico Ryans. He's an aggressive guy. I think the opportunities to go deep will be there a little bit more. You mentioned Alec Pierce having an opportunity to step up in this game. Until he does something in a regular season game, we're just going to call him preseason Pierce. That's all we're going to call him, man, because you see all these cut-ups and these highlights of these great catches he makes, and he gets out on the football field. He's not able to translate that for some reason, but that's really his skill set. And I feel like the one thing that he and AR can really connect on, AR is great at throwing the deep ball. He's very comfortable doing that. And then you got Alec Pierce, a guy who's always been comfortable high pointing those 50-50 footballs as well. You think that would be a really good thing. So if they can just get a little bit of chemistry going, some timing down, maybe that turns into something special. But Drake had mentioned, he's going to hit a wall as the season goes along, and then he's going to be forced to adapt. And I think that is going to be the indicator and the difference between him, turning out to be a really, really special quarterback in the NFL, and then for him just being an average quarterback in the NFL. So more to come when it comes to that. When it comes to Houston, I just don't think there's anybody there that necessarily scares me. You hate to say that the Colts are clearly more talented, but I think they probably are more talented. Adam, just your thoughts on just the talent level. Probably 2 low-level teams in the NFL to start with, but Houston, anybody you can think of that you're just like thinking, man, I'm scared of this guy going out and getting me this Sunday?
Yeah, it's probably a guy that a lot of people don't even know he's on their team, and hasn't had didn't have a great season with the Titans last year, but I would never sleep on Robert Woods.
Okay,
that guy's a really good route runner. And especially with the inexperience in our defensive backfield, I think he's probably a guy that could kind of surprise some people. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes over 100 and catches, a touchdown or two. Hope not, but he's someone that I think they definitely got to key in on. Their team isn't exactly, flush with talent. They're obviously rebuilding, kind of in a similar mode that we are. Another guy that comes to mind is Dalton Schultz. It seemed like they really struggled with covering tight ends last year. I remember O.J. Howard randomly came in and caught 2 touchdowns in the season opener last year. So, no, it's a new year, different coach and everything like that. So who knows what kind of scheme they're going to roll out there. But, if they can lock down those guys and make other, low-level guys, newer name guys beat them, I think they're going to be, in pretty good shape. That might be the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we got to win this game, right, Steven? Just you guys hit us up with the comments. What do you think as far as score prediction, all that good stuff? But if the Colts lose this game, Steven, that's bad, right? Huh? I mean, they're not. Hey, first of all, shout out to Steven for not wearing an ex-player shirt today. No Carson Wentz, no Eric Ebron. So we're making it, man. We're baby steps, but we're getting there. Sorry, Steven, it's a sidetrack. But seriously though, like Houston on paper, if we're bad, I mean, they're even worse, from a talent level standpoint. Just no real big names, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Nobody on that team. I know Robert Woods, is a veteran guy who could have a day against us. There's no question, but still nobody that really, really, really scares you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, as Adam was talking, I was looking through. I pulled up their depth chart, and I'm like, okay, Robert Woods, yes. I could see him because we have the ability last year and in years past, we have the ability as a defense to let one guy shine who we have no clue if he may never do it again, right? And yeah. I mean, you just never know. But I mean, as you go through it, it's like he's the only name that I recognize outside of C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills, right? Like the backup quarterback. But you start going through and you're just like, man, they got rid of some talent left, obviously. Brandon Cooks would have been one that would have worried me, obviously, because he was good against us last year. He's gone. Dalton Schultz is a great one. I didn't think about him, but that's a really solid tight end. And for a rookie quarterback, tight ends is the best friend, right? Yeah. So, I mean, but I just look at it, and it might be just me, but I just look at it like if the Colts are in a rebuild and we have talent, that we're a little ahead of them in regards to the rebuild and the talent. They're not a lot, but I just look at them as they're just not. There's not a lot there. Their defense, I think, is challenging. I think their defense that seems to be where the talent really is on their team right now. But on the offensive side of the ball, we heard all the time for putting it in perspective is surround the quarterback, right? Like we want to surround Anthony Richardson. They have not surrounded C.J. Stroud with much of anything coming in as a rookie. They've not given him a lot of weapons. So, I mean, but that's just me, right? Like I just don't think – I don't see a ton of talent there. I think the Colts roster – I'll say this. I think the Colts roster has more talent. Sometimes it's at positions that you don't think of, right? Like our linebackers are great, but it's not like this. It's not like this high marquee position that you see, and it's like that's where the talent is. I think there's more talent. I think there's just for the Colts, there's not depth behind some of this talent outside of certain positions.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not trying to poo-poo on the Texans. I'm not trying to have this be clipped up and be like, oh, he's talking horrible. But there is a reason why you're picking so high, and there's a reason why people think you're going to be picking so high again next year, right? So it's just I don't see the glaring playmaker, the one that you're like, that's who you're – that could be a problem too. I don't see the guy you're going to scheme against. Who's the guy you got to take away? Because, I mean –
I think more for for me, more of their talent kind of lies on the defense. They're starting to kind of build on that side more than anything. Maybe get to offense next year. Guys, light us up with your predictions as we do every single Wednesday. We'll go ahead and go for the prediction. This is probably the only game that will be for sure a favorite in as the season goes along, even though it just be 1 point. I'm gonna go 23-20 Colts on the road. Little walk-off field goal right there from Matt Gay. 23-20 Colts. What say you, Adam?
I'm going to kind of stick with what I said before, kind of a below, no one scoring 20 points. I'll go kind of a weird 17-16 Colts walk
There
off.
we go. There we go. Yeah. Steven, what say you?
I go back and forth, man, on what I want to do here. I'm loving what I saw in the chat, 31-14. That'd be fantastic. I'm going to go 28-17 Colts. I think that there's the ability, although I don't see the numbers that they're talking that Corey's talking about for him. 275. It feels like a lot, but I mean, he snuck up there last time. I think ideally, if they don't have to throw the ball 38 times with him, they'd like to do that. So, I mean, I'm going to say they get 28. I'm going to go 28-17 Colts. And can you pop up the John Mechie? I looked. He's not listed first or second on their depth chart. He's listed as the third receiver. So I completely missed him. Uber talented, but didn't play at all last year, obviously, because of leukemia. But that was one that I missed because he was not listed first, second. He was third on their depth chart, third receiver.
All right, man. So there you go. All the way around, we're sitting there predicting Colts get this game. Yeah, I mean, it'll be a game. It'll be interesting to see what we can do and grow and how this offense kind of develops. And I think you want Zach Moss to stay healthy, and B, you want to see if you can have an upgrade there, because the better that running game is, the better for your quarterback. Teams can really right now, as far as the running game goes, they can just key in on Richardson. They're not really worried about if he hands the football off. So should see a little bit of upgrade. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream as we do it every single Wednesday all season long. Instant reaction after every single game, as well as we got Bob Kravitz coming on tomorrow. Should be a good time, good week. And as always, thanks for the comments, and go Colts.